probably wouldn't go as far as Sam Harris does, but
Yeah.
because I don't think that that Israel is necessarily helping, right?
Right, I agree. I think while they may or may not hold the moral high ground, they do a lot of incredibly ill-advised things.
If they don't hold the moral, if they hold the moral high ground, it is only because they're not sending suicide bombers. Pretty much, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And and in practical terms, I'm not sure what the real difference is between a suicide bomber and a tank, as far as expressing, a desire to do violence. It's more civilized when it's a tank because nobody's killing themselves, right? And it's more civilized when it's a tank because it's officially military and maybe not meant to kill women and children when it does anyway.
Right. Let's see. I'm looking at some more. It says, a cult of death is forming in the Muslim world for reasons that are perfectly explicable in terms of the Islamic doctrines of martyrdom and jihad. The truth is that we are not fighting a war on terror. We are fighting a pestilential theology and a longing for paradise. This is not to say that we are at war with all Muslims, but we are absolutely at war with those who believe that death in defense of the faith is the highest possible good, that cartoonists should be killed for caricaturing the Prophet, and that any Muslim who loses his faith should be butchered for apostasy. Unfortunately, such religious extremism is not as fringe a phenomenon as we might hope. Numerous studies have found that the most radicalized Muslims tend to have better than average educations and economic opportunities. That's all I'm going to say for that article.
Okay. I mean, anybody else have a comment?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
This is kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We were talking about what could possibly happen if America became, let's say, a Christian theocracy.
Right.
There are fundamental differences between the core tenets of Islam and Christianity.
By the way, I didn't hear Sam Harris talking about those in the segments that you read.
No, but I hear that there's a lot about it in his book.
Okay.
Yeah, his new book, Letters to a Christian Nation, which I haven't read yet, but I will. But anyway, Christianity doesn't encourage martyrdom, for one thing. And while there are passages in there that can be interpreted very easily as kill non-believers, kill infidels and everything else, it's also, among most Christians, lots of those passages were specific. They weren't to a time and place.
In a particular situation.
They weren't general order.
But isn't that
and from what I understand, in the Quran, it actually says, like, among the commandments of what you are supposed to do, that, like, for instance, being a Muslim and then renouncing your faith is a crime that should be punishable by death.
Yeah. The whole concept of a fatwa doesn't even exist. But the other thing is that among Christians, there are a wide variety of groups. There's liberal Christians, moderate Christians, fundamentalists, extremists, and everything else. Many of them who have the most dangerous beliefs, the most dangerous Christian beliefs, are directly opposed to any idea of a Christian nation. They don't feel that they should be running the United States. Matter of fact, up until a century ago, most of these people were discouraged from voting or interacting in politics at all until they were marginalized by the neocons and said, hey, here's an untapped market. And that's when the neocons started playing to the family values, co-opted all of those people who otherwise would not have voted because they're not of this world. They live in this world, but they are not of this world. They pay their taxes because Jesus says to render under Caesar, but they're not concerned with worldly things or politics.
But aren't they now?
There are some of them that are that way now, especially because of what I was talking about, where the neocons have pushed this family value thing.
That's what I'm saying. I guess here,
but the values that they're pushing aren't the scary death to infidels values. I mean, their issues are abortion and homosexuality and things like that. But it doesn't go to the point of let's kill them.
I've heard Christians say that there should be the death penalty for homosexuality.
One nut job senator has said that in public, but even Fred Phelps doesn't advocate killing homosexuals.
He doesn't?
No, because that's against the law, and always should be against the law because it's murder. His position is that homosexuals...
But it's in the Bible.
No. What the Bible says is that they're deserving of death, and Fred Phelps' position is that they're deserving of death, but it's God's duty to mete out that punishment, not man's. He just rejoices every time a homosexual is killed because that's God doing His work.
I don't see a whole lot of difference. If you're when you're talking about changing attitudes over time, step one toward a population full of people who think we really ought to put homosexuals to death is a population of people who think, yay, another homosexual died.
Sure, but you're making a slippery slope argument.
Well,
you're ignoring the fact that they are...
I don't think I am. I think there are plenty of examples of this sort of thing actually happening. And I think that you are maybe blinded by focusing too much on the nature of Christianity as it is practiced right now in the U.S., and not looking at clear examples of where it can go and has gone in the past.
Sure.
Now, granted, I'll take your word for it, not having read the Quran, that there are passages in the Quran that do not require do not allow themselves to be reinterpreted as anything less savage than they really are. And in the Bible, the comparable passages are things where it is easier to say, well, that was only relevant in that time and in that situation. But I know of stuff, maybe less dangerous things that Christians believe right now on the basis of Bible passages that are probably not about what they are claiming that they're about.
I think you've just completely misunderstood what I was saying.
Okay.
You can justify any vile thing you want with the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the society that we live in and the way Christianity is practiced doesn't automatically lend itself to the same sort of violence that Islam does. The books themselves they justify things differently. Okay, you have to do a little bit of work in order within Christianity to justify the type of killing that's going on based on Islam. And I'm saying that if America becomes a Christian theocracy in 20 years, yes, there'll be tons of shit that you and I will object to even more than we already do. But I don't think you'll see the level of violence, because the thing is, you're talking about a very small portion of Christians who could ever accept that, yes, it's okay to tie a homosexual to the back of your truck and drag him down the road. There's just very few people that would do that, regardless of whether or not they have this inherent good in them or this inherent societal thing that's,
So why do Muslims do that? I mean, if you had a sort of liberal society like ours, I mean...
Yeah, could you then have Islam in a society like ours and then be making the exact same argument you're making?
Yes.
So you think our society itself renders it immune to ever turning into the kind of scary place...
Democracy, freedom of speech,
we're too fat and happy.
Human rights.
All the things that are being directly attacked by the people trying to turn this country into a theocracy.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's that many people trying to turn this country into a theocracy. I think there are some people who are pushing bits and pieces of their agenda within the scope of this book.
They have the long-term goal of turning it into a theocracy.
You're talking about dominionists, which are like a 0.5% of the population.
Thousands of them had a great big convention.
Well, there were a million black people marched on Washington.
But if those 1,000 people are Christians are the only ones who are working to make this happen, and if they're not being opposed consciously, I'm just... Well, right. I mean, you're right. I am at this point in the realm of I'm afraid about where this might go, and I can't prove it.
I think that our government is structured automatically to protect us from this, and you would have to fuck up in a colossal way in order for us to get to the point that those other nations are.
How many right-wing conservative judges do we have in the Supreme Court right now?
But see, I understand.
There's a decent chance Bush might get another one before he goes.
I'm as pissed off about that stuff and worried.
But
about
I'm saying that these are the stepping stones toward exactly what you're saying it would take, and surely you recognize. You may say it's not very many people trying to do this. Surely you recognize there is a conscious effort to make this happen. It's just obvious.
No.
I think what he's saying is
that
the number of people who actually want that are not nearly big enough to
ever
accomplish
affect change.
anything.